behalf of the Badminton Pan American Confederation, we warmly welcome you to our new season of Coach Corner Programme. My name is Richard Wong, and it's my pleasure to be your moderator today. In today's session, we will explore an important topic in the development of young badminton players: how to build emotional control and tactical intelligence in junior badminton. Beyond technique and physical preparation, players must learn how to manage pressure, stay focused, and make better tactical decisions during matches. For this session, we are pleased to welcome Dr. Anil Ramachandran from India, who will share practical tools to help coaches develop these essential skills in junior players. Before I hand over the session to Dr. Ramachandran, please allow me to introduce him. He's a professor of sports science at Kunar University and Secretary General of the Sports Psychology Association of India, combining academic expertise, research, and sports psychology. He's a former international badminton player, a BWF Level 1 coach, and he has trained national and international high performance players. He was also a guest lecturer at the BWF World Coaching Conferences, the World Congress of Sport Psychology, and Olympic Game Conferences. Welcome to our program. Thank you so much for joining us and for welcoming us to your home in Kunar, India. Please take control and share your presentation.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you're perfect now.
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Richard Wong, and the organizers of this wonderful session on the Coach Corner program of the BPAC. And I'm really grateful for the intellectual sessions being provided to the coaches in terms of various topics related to badminton. And today, we are with a topic which, as rightly introduced, which is of immense importance in the developmental stages of junior badminton players, where we'll try to understand how important it is to develop emotional control and tactical intelligence in junior badminton players. Now, if you look at the scenario of a match condition, we will see that some very talented players, they lose matches when it becomes to a very close fight. Some players collapse when the score is at 18-all, 19-all, or maybe in a decider when the score is leveled at 18, 19, or 20. You also see some players who can quickly recover after a couple of mistakes, come back, reset themselves, and emerge themselves as winners in the matches. So this was a point of observation and a point of research for us, where we conducted research on junior girls badminton players, 14 to 18 years. And we observed that it was not the fitness, it was not the technique, but it was something which was happening inside them. The thought process, which was deciding on how they are able to manage the close situations during a match, how they are able to become calm, focus the task in hand, reset themselves psychologically, and were able to manage the pressure and emerge as winners in the particular match situation. Now, if you look at what separates top players from the rest, like badminton, maybe in tennis or in any game, if you take, you'll find that almost all the players are quite equal in terms of their skill level, but their ability to read the game, their ability to control emotions, and their ability to make the right decisions during close pressure situations. That differentiate between who wins the match and who might lose the match, despite both the players being talented, physically fit, and having good technical skills. So the difference between good and great players lies in how they think, not just how they play. So talent alone may not win close matches in the longer version of the career when they reach at the elite level. We have seen very good players when it comes to the higher level of competitions like the All England, which we recently witnessed, or maybe the Olympic Games or the World Championship. You find a very thin line which decides who win a match in a particular day. Almost all the players at the top 5 or 10 are equally talented, have wonderful skills, good physical fitness, and perfect techniques. But it depends on who is able to control the emotions that influences their performance and the tactical thinking in the pressure situations, which are very, very crucial. You look at allied players, it is not simply reacting to the shuttle, but they are able to read the game. They're able to understand what is the incoming stroke from the opponent. They're able to make an early movement, which we call as anticipation. They are able to adapt when something which comes as a surprise. And they are able to control their mind under pressure situations. All these are happening in a fraction of a second. And badminton being a very, very fast game, the amount of time a player gets to make the slight adjustments during the competitive situations differentiate between who can take the lead and who can win the match and who finally becomes in the losing side. As you all know, badminton is a very, very interesting game, which is known as one of the most fastest game racket sports. The fastest smash reported is almost 565 kilometers per hour. Is Rangi Reddy from India. The average human reaction time is approximately around 250 milliseconds. And allied badminton players, very often, they operate on strokes which are somewhere around 150 to 200 milliseconds. So as a game, badminton requires rapid perception, the ability to perceive the incoming shuttle as quickly as possible. And then processing it within a short millisecond, taking appropriate decisions, and executing a motor response. If you look at this phenomena, you will agree with me that badminton is more cognitive than physical. The information processing in the brain and the rapid firing of the decision making and the response of the muscular system through the motor responses differentiate how a player is able to anticipate faster, retrieve faster, and make a perfect shot. strategic shot, which can be important in winning that particular rally. In a badminton match, the shuttle can travel. If you look at the full court length, which is 13.4 meters, in approximately 0.16 seconds. So you cannot actually rely on reaction time. There has to be something extra where you're able to read the stroke of the opponent and make an early anticipation. Getting cues from the opponent is very critical in making early anticipations. So there are a few things which are very important in terms of how a badminton player process informations which can lead to his better anticipation. It depends on how he perceives the opponent's stroke, maybe with the point of the style of the player, the racket action, the time of contact, the body movements. He's able to read and he's able to understand that this is probably a particular stroke which can be an attacking stroke or maybe a drop into the net or a shuttle which is being cleared as a defensive stroke. So this perception becomes the first starting point in making the player decide how he should move instantly. Good players are often good readers of the game. They understand each player differently. They understand their favorite strokes. They have cues about certain body movements, certain racket movements. And with this perception, they take an early decision to anticipate an expected stroke from the opponent, where we find that they move very instantly. In fact, it is all this cognitive process which is making them to move faster. If you differentiate a player who's a beginner, who is an average player, and who is a elite professional player, a professional player is able to perceive the stroke even before the player is able to execute it. But a beginner will see the shuttle only after it crosses the net. So this speed of perception and the associated decision making and anticipation is very, very important at the elite level, where you find players are moving so instantly, so appropriately, reaching everywhere for the opponent's shuttle and making strategical moves. So if you look at the difficulty of the task a badminton player very often has, he has less than 0.2 seconds to see, to perceive, process the information, make an appropriate decision, and respond. This becomes very, very important and vital in developing the tactical ability of players as they move from the junior level to the elite or the senior level. Very often we find that players are not good enough. They are good in terms of physical capacities. They are good in terms of technical skills. They have enough practice sessions, but they are not faster in terms of cognitive thinking, strategical options, the ability to read the game, and to make early anticipations. These are also skills, these are also capabilities which needs to be trained, nurtured, motivated at an early age so that the player becomes confident when he falls into a very tight competitive situations. He's able to handle the pressure. He's able to make vital decisions. And he's able to come out of difficult situations. He's able to reset his mind. And these doesn't happen overnight. These have to be developed as and when the player is developing through the developmental stages from the junior to the senior transition. So as we have understood, badminton as a game requires rapid tactical decisions within seconds. Unlike other games where there is plenty of pause in between. For example, a football player, he has plenty of options. He can even pass the ball to somebody else and then take a fraction of a second to decide what next move he has to make. But for a badminton player, preferably when he's playing a singles, he is fully in the court, not having a break in between, except for the rally break, which he has to make use of it. The time is very important. And he has to go through the 4 important processes of perception ability, to have visual cues, deciding on what type of stroke he is expecting the player to play and perceiving it rightly, taking this information, processing it, making an appropriate decision making. Whatever be the game situation, whether it is the player is up in position or down in position or equal in a decisive match, is he able to control his emotions? Is he able to have good thought processes? His thinking matters a lot. If he doesn't have positive thinking, and if he is thinking about the mistakes he has already dwelt during the previous rally, the fear of failure may set in, and he is likely to commit more mistakes. When it comes to important situation, the tactical adaptability of a player becomes very, very crucial. Despite losing 1 or 2 points in a deciding game, is he able to control his nerves? Is he able to relax and become calm and give a pause for making appropriate strategical options and to return back in control of the game? So this adaptability, or these factors which we all combinedly we can call it as the psychological readiness, differentiate successful versus unsuccessful players. Now, what happens with the junior players? Of course, they have limited competitive exposure. In the sense, you compare it with the elite players who are playing at the senior level. So they may not come into unexpected situations during a match. They might not have diverse experiences of crucial situations of pressure matches. They have underdeveloped anticipatory decision-making skills, which is often not being considered vital by coaches. At the initial stage, it is considered that it is all physical. It is all technical. So we have so much of training sessions building upon the fitness parameters, so much of multi-feeding and training sessions, which goes with the skill development or the technical development, but not very common to provide situations where the player is able to develop anticipatory and decision-making skills. And moreover, junior players, they also find it very difficult in managing competitive emotions. As psychologists, we often get queries from players and coaches and parents that my son or daughter is not able to handle the pressure. He plays at the state level, it is okay. When it goes to the national level, he is not able to handle the pressure. Of course, a few essential tips can be given to the players, which can resolve the temporary phenomena of handling the anxiety, the frustration, or managing the emotions. But as a player, in making a champion mindset, these skills have to be provided during the training sessions, during the developmental stages, so that the player develops a new strategical approach, a new pattern of playing, which in the longer version will be beneficial for him or her when he is competing at the elite level. And this is felt that the psychological training is often neglected in the youth programs. It's not only in badminton, it's generally in all the sports, because we consider everything as more physical and more technical. And when it comes to the later stages, we understand that it is psychological, but then it becomes too late to create a champion mindset in the players. To make it very simple, let us not go with the psychological variables as such. It all depends upon how the players are able to control their emotions. Emotions in terms of anxiety, the feeling of stress, unable to manage the tight competitive situations, not able to think properly, not able to make appropriate decisions, getting blank, the thought process not working, no strategical approach. It is just reacting to whatever is coming. So this controlling of emotions becomes a very, very crucial factor in preparing the player in terms of psychological readiness. How do the players think during pressure situations? I would request the coaches, after a match is over, once the player calms down, whatever be the consequence of the match, winning or losing, you should be able to pinpoint few situations of the match and get back to the player and ask them what was happening with their thought process during that pressure situation. When the score was 18 all in the deciding game, third game, what was the thinking of the player? Now, if you're able to analyze this thought process into certain themes, when we look at the qualitative research, we try to analyze the thought process and bring it into certain themes. You will understand whether the player is having a positive theme or the player is having a negative theme during crucial situations. Now, this change of negative themes to the positive themes in the thinking process becomes very vital for the player to handle such pressure situations in the future matches. And the third important thing here is how the players respond after mistakes. Mistakes are inevitable in a game like badminton, where it's just so fast paced. Every player commits plenty of mistakes. But a winning player is able to understand the mistakes, come out of those mistakes, avoid repetitive mistakes, and make a strategical change in terms of what to be done in the coming rallies so that he doesn't commit the earlier mistakes. He's able to read the player. Where is the player's weakness? What happened when I played a close net shot? What happened when I lifted the shuttle to the forehand corner? So this thinking process and better reading of the game during the pressure situations, no matter whatever mistakes have happened, are you able to reset yourself into a calm and composed mindset, not to think and dwell over the mistakes which is done earlier, but to think of what is happening next and to prepare yourself for the incoming rallies, controlling your emotions, getting into a relaxed stage, physiologically as well as psychologically. These are what we call the most simplest methods by which a player can be psychologically in a state of readiness in competitive situations in badminton. You must have seen when players make 2 or 3 mistakes continuously. We call it as the unforced errors. The opponent is not forcing you, but you are creating errors by yourself. What usually happens in the next rally is the player gets panicked. He makes fast moves. He rushes into the next rally because he wants to break this continuity of making unforced errors. And with the desire to make a winning stroke, he might put little more energy into his smash, try to smash more harder. Sometimes he might stop attacking, or he might feel that he is not able to take a decision, and he starts looking at the coach, what to do now? So these are reflections that the player is poorly prepared in terms of cognitive thinking and tactical adaptability when the matches become closer and the matches become more crucial, matches become more competitive and equally paced. The real match difference, as we have understood, it is not about the skill. Of course, skill is very important, but then every player is equally skillful when it comes to the highest level. It is not about fitness. It lies in 3 important dimensions: the emotional control you have, the clarity of your tactical approaches, and the clear thinking process which is applicable during pressure situations. And this is very easily said, but it is not that easily practiced. So these require conscious effort from the part of coaches. So we look into how these components can be integrated into the practice sessions. Because this is not only the job of a psychologist. It is for the coach to see that many of these skills will have to go along with the physical and the technical practice. It cannot be in a paper pencil situation outside the badminton court alone. Of course, many things can be done there. But integrating that into the practice sessions becomes more vital, more beneficial, and developmental for the players, so that that becomes part of their routine. It sets a new routine for them in terms of becoming more strategical in their approach, in their stroke making, in their ability to read the opponent, and in making them calm and composed in dealing with difficult situations. In our study of women badminton players, where we try to compare winners versus losers at the elite and developmental stages. So when we interviewed them and we looked at the thinking process, we were able to differentiate very common patterns of thinking among the winners and among the players who lost the match. The winners were thinking, okay, it's okay, I'm going to adjust. Next rally becomes important. They are able to look into what is their opportunity. She is little weak on the backhand side, at the corner. So I need to focus my strokes into that area so that I get a weaker return. I need to be patient enough. I need to wait for opportunities. So they were learning from their mistakes. It is not that they did not commit mistakes, but they were able to learn faster from their mistakes, and they were trying to focus on the solutions. But when you look at the losers, they were continuously having a loop of thoughts that I am losing rallies one by one. I'm sure the coach is going to be angry with me. They had a very negative scripting in them that I may not win from the situation. I've lost even previously. I always lose when it comes to close matches. 19 all, I may not benefit from this particular situation. So the major difference is the losers were focusing on the problems, whereas the winners were focusing on the possible solutions in future. So this thinking process doesn't come naturally. This thinking process has to be created by incorporating training sessions, by incorporating the psychological readiness skills, by allowing the players to have reflective thinking, preparing them strategically to become calm and composed, relaxation techniques, self-talks, which can be positive, cue words, which can trigger them. So all these, being said so simply, has to be a regular pattern in the practice sessions so that player integrate this as part of their training session. So I'll just take an overview of the study which we did. We were trying to assess the mood states. There's a variable called mood states of the players, which can be assessed using a 24-item questionnaire. A very simple one. You can do it before and post match. So we try to assess the mood states and before and after the matches. We try to compare it between players playing at a light level and players who are playing at a moderate level. We also try to identify the thinking patterns during the matches. And we had some psychological interventions, which I'll discuss on the course of the lecture in the coming slides. So for your understanding, mood state is a psychological variable where we have six subscales, sorry, which assess the players in terms of the gradation of tension they have, the relative state of depression, the amount of anger, the vigor or energy level, the rating of how much of fatigue is in them, and an assessment of how much of confusion is with them. So this is a very, very vital variable which can reflect on what is the preparedness of the player before a match and what has happened to the player as an outcome of the match, whether the player has won or lost the match. Now, if you look at a standard profile of mood states, not going into the research point of it, but just for your understanding. See, we have these variables at the bottom of the graph: tension, depression, anxiety, vigor, fatigue, and confusion in that order. And we have the scores in the vertical scale. Now, if you see the difference between successful athletes and unsuccessful athletes, you'll find that the subvariable vigor is very high for successful players. This is general. This is not only for badminton. This is general. But the vigor for the player who loses the matches or who is not successful is comparatively low. Equally important are the other variables. You look at tension, depression, anxiety, fatigue, confusion. These variables are on a lower version with the vigor taking a iceberg profile. But for the other players who are unsuccessful, you'll see the tension is on the high, fatigue is on the high, vigor is moderate, confusion is also on the high. So the thinking process and the associated mood states becomes very important, very decisive for a player in terms of the preparedness during the match and in terms of what he takes away after the outcome of the match. So elite athletes are generally with high vigor and low in their negative mood states of tension, anger, confusion, and fatigue. They have a better balanced emotional profile. These are seen in high performers. So this was something in our study which we observed on the developmental players before and after the match and elite players, successful players before and after the match. We also got somewhere a classical reading and graphical representation where the elite players had higher vigor states and had lower scores in terms of fatigue, confusion, depression, and tension. So these are some simple testing which can be done while we are training our players, maybe on a weekly basis or even a daily basis, to take a pre-assessment of the mood states and a post-assessment of mood states when you have practice matches or competitive matches. So elite match winners had higher vigor, lower tension, lower confusion, which we call it as a emotionally balanced state. And the losers had just the opposite. They had higher scores in terms of tension, higher scores in terms of confusion. They seemed to be more fatigued. And they even had a moderate score in terms of vigor. The energy level was comparatively lower. You'll find an emotional reactive state of mood in terms of the match losers. Now we come into the most important part, why thinking matters. Thinking patterns of players are very important. Every rally requires quick decision making. How does a player decide that should I go for a short service? Should I go for a high service? If I should go for a short service, should I keep it to the center of the court, the tee, or should I go with the corners of the front court? Should I lift the shuttle? Should I keep it in the net? Should I give a high lift? Should I give a moderate lift? Should I push it back? Now, all these are very, very crucial decision making of players, which requires the players to think. So until unless the thinking process is being taught to the players, they might have a stereotyped game without able to read the situation of the rallies, without being able to read the style of the play of the opponent, without being able to make appropriate strategical decisions. And it has been well researched and found out that emotions affect clarity in terms of your tactical ability. If you're emotionally disturbed, you will not have clarity of thoughts. You will not be able to make good tactical decisions. So you need to control your emotions. You need to be on a very stable mindset. You need to be relaxed and calm so that the thinking becomes more clear. There is perfect thinking and there is clarity in terms of the tactical approaches. And one important variable, a practice which can influence is the self-talk. as we discussed earlier, there can be lots of negative thoughts coming into the players by default. Now that negative thoughts has to be re-scripted in terms of positive self-talks, so that these self-talks will trigger your brain and create a loop of positive mindset and the associated responses, which goes into the motor system and the muscular system. So this is a very, very important loop by which your communication to yourself can make you think properly, think with clarity, and provide you an emotional balance state in taking appropriate tactical decisions. Allied players, they had very positive thoughts in terms of forget about it, it's over. I'll focus on the next rally. I'll play appropriate stocks for this. They were able to adjust their strategies. Despite losing 3 or 4, we must have seen wonderful players who are trailing. Maybe, I think in the All England, we saw a match. A player was trailing at 13-20 and then catching up 2 to 3 points at a time, making it a 20 all, and ultimately winning the match at 22-20. So this patience is important. Taking one point at a time is important. All this happens with your thought process. Once the thought process is affected, once your mindset is affected, once you have the negative thoughts, I might lose, I might commit an error, and you are very likely to commit a mistake. So that mindset of preparedness is what creates a positive mindset in the successful players. Allied players, they have an associated strength. How this comes? This comes because of the previous thought process. It is the thought process which leads to confidence. Because you have positive thoughts, you are getting into a confident mindset. Despite losing 3 to 4 points in a row, you are able to come back. You are getting a better quality of resilience to bounce back from the failures. You are able to focus on the present target, present task in hand, forgetting about what you have done earlier. So there is a good learning from the mistakes, and to avoid repeated mistakes and to make a different set of pattern, which is ideally suitable as a strategical move for the future transition of the rallies. Unsuccessful players, they have communications to themselves that I'm losing. I always lose at this particular stage. The coach will naturally be disappointed. My players will be disappointed. My parents will be disappointed. All these thoughts, which are consequences of losing a match, creep in the mind of the players even while the match is still in their hand. Now, avoiding these thoughts and trying to focus with a positive mindset becomes very, very crucial. We say success of a player is not only the drive for achievement, but it is a mathematical approach of drive for achievement minus fear of failure. Every player might have a drive to achieve, but they will also have an associated fear of failure. Now, which weighs more? Does your achievement drive is very, very high as compared to the fear of failure, you are likely to succeed. But if your fear of failure is mounted more than your drive to achieve, you are likely to end up as a loser, despite being talented to win that particular match. Unsuccessful players, because of the associated thoughts, they get anxiety, they get into stressful situations, they will not have clarity in their thought process. Tactically, they get confused. They have pressure within the match as well as the external pressure. Not the situation of the match alone which creates pressure, but even the external factors creep into their thought process. And that adds up to the more pressure. Limited reflection of the situation. They are not able to think. They are not able to take some time back and reflect on what is to be done. So the major psychological gap, I would say, is how you can create the developmental players who are basically problem focused to transit them into successful allied players who are solution focused. So this takes a long journey. And this cannot happen overnight, as I said. This has to be developed during each stage of the practice sessions, during each competitive stage, where the player is made to think and reflect for himself or herself, not depending too much on the coach. Because ultimately, when it comes to crucial matches, it is a player who has to face a situation one to one. The coach can make the player prepared, but during a match, it is for the player to have independent thinking, to create a calm and composed mindset, and to have clarity in his thought process. Why interventions? Because they can clear emotional gap, they can remove the tactical hesitation in players, they can change the reactive mindset into a very strategic mindset of players. Okay, I'll make it a little faster because I think we have understood with the issues which are to be tackled with the junior level players. We'll also look into how we can integrate this mental training into the drills. As a coach, not as a psychologist, but as a coach who is in the training session, how do you encourage player reflection? How you can monitor the emotional responses and how you can provide constructive feedback. I've seen wonderful coaches who sit with the players after the match, maybe after the player is calmed down, irrespective of the consequence of the match as a winner or loser, but then tries to explore the thinking pattern of the players and try to make them independent thinkers. Not to have a game situation where after every rally, the player looks back at the coach, what to do now. So this may not be the right approach once he goes to the elite level. So we have certain strategies which we'll discuss today is one is scenario-based training, where you can create practical situations. I think some of the coaches must be doing it, but then that can be a little more tactically planned so that the mental or the cognitive aspect also comes into it. Post-match debrief is very important. I'm sure most of the good coaches must be doing it. Video feedback, not for the tactical situations alone, but for emotional cues as well, becomes very important. And emotional reset routines, which can be practiced by the players in the training as well as in the competitive situations. So scenario-based training, I think players must be having this approach of having starting the match with pressure situations. You say the game is at the third game, 18 all. And you ask the player to take over the charge of the game and to become successful in that, winning the match. This can be done not only at equal score, it can be even at a trailing score. Maybe 16-18 third game. Can you pull the game from here? And this can be added with 1 versus 2, where the pressure is more because of fast-paced strokes from the opponents. So these situations will provide familiarity with the player of how he is able to approach such crucial situations during a tight match in the real competition. Simulate pressure points. So putting certain pressure rallies or maybe as 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, and then putting into a pressure situation. asking the player to come out from that. And more important is not how the player comes out, but the coach should be able to discuss with the player, what is your plan now? What are you going to do from this situation? And should take time to discuss on the decisions to provide more clarity on what could be an ideal decision at that particular point of time. So this is one strategy you can approach in terms of scenario-based training. What it benefits, it improves anticipation, it reduces panic on a normal scale, it builds confidence because the player has already done it. He will not get confused when it comes to the real match because he has already practiced it. Improves speed of decision making. Post-match debrief is very important. Irrespective of the consequences, player must have won or lost. You should be able to ask very few questions, not to ponder on lots of questions to the players. What worked well? What didn't work for you? And what are you trying to change in the next match? Keep it very short. The player will have a reflective process. He will start thinking over what was going right for him, what was not going right, and what is the possible options he will. Otherwise, he will be totally dependent on the coach alone. So this reflective thinking is very important in making independent thought process in the players. It builds reflection, improves self-awareness, reduces emotional reaction, encourages players to be more responsible. Intervention video feedback. Possibly, I think almost all the matches are now video recorded by default. So you should be able to review the emotional reactions during the matches, not the strategical and tactical alone. Identify the tactical errors, understand the decision process, and ask the player what are the plans for improvement. So this video feedback intervention becomes again another additional input in terms of providing better understanding of the situations during the match, the errors and what caused the errors, what is likely not to cause the errors, and in taking appropriate decisions. Emotional reset routine is very important. After a mistake, what do? Don't stay with the mistake. Just turn away from it. You must have seen the cricket players. If you observe cricket or any other match, once a ball is missed from the bat, they just walk away from the pitch and they come back. Now it is not simply walking away; they are totally trying their mind away from that mistake. So a badminton player once has committed mistake, just move away from there. Walk back, come to the service area, forget about it. Take deep breath. Breathing is one of the important exercise which can be practiced. Relaxation technique which can be practiced, where you have 3 to 4 seconds of inhalation, 1 or 2 seconds of hold, and 3 to 4 deep exhalations, which calms down the body, which provides better oxygenation, clarity of thoughts. Cue word, the trigger word for the next rally, positive words, and coming back to the ready position. Sometimes you commit a mistake, then you come and stand, you are not in the proper footwork, you don't hold the racket properly, your grip is not comfortable, and you suddenly commit another mistake. Now, these are very important. What has happened has happened, but come back, see that all the fundamentals are kept proper. Your body positions are right, your gripping is correct, your stance is okay, so that you don't commit another mistake for the next rally, which again can put you into a emotional stage. Now, this has to be practiced in the training sessions. So impact after the intervention, we tried these interventions among few players. We found out that even the intermediate players were able to better their emotional control. They had better decision making. It increased their confidence. It has developed better tactical clarity. So key insight, we understand that emotional control separates players from emerging as winners and losers. Tactical thinking happens only when the mind is reset to a calmness and comfortable, poised condition. So once the mind is not calm, there are confused thoughts in you. You will not be able to make proper tactical decisions. Confidence definitely reduces confusion. Or you can say confused mind negatively affects the confidence of players. What this means for coaches? The psychological training or mental training must be regular and should be at an earlier age. Do not neglect this part of the development of the players, thinking that this can be taught and practiced at a later stage. It will be very difficult. It is not only for the tournaments, it should be integrated into the daily practice routines. Importance of these skills, video feedback are very, very important reflective mechanisms by which a player can develop better tactical awareness. Reflective practices enhances metacognitive learning. They will start thinking about why they thought. And that is the starting point of changing their thought process. Thought analysis improves quality in their decision making. And emotional regulation improves performance stability. So all these are considered as very vital during crucial, tight match situations. Implications would suggest that coaches should be able to combine technical drills along with psychological training, effective use of video analysis, not only for technical analysis, but for tactical learning. Encourage reflective journaling. Players should be able to reflect and pen it down so that this becomes a loop of feedback for the player to think what went wrong during my previous 3 matches and what has made a difference in the next 2 matches. Develops athletes' metacognitive awareness. Add pressure drills in a weekly basis. 2 to 3 minutes of reflection after every match, probably after every training session, I feel. At least a weekly video discussion session. And make the player to teach them to reset their routine. Coach language becomes very important because it is all human interaction. Communication is very important key. Avoid negative criticism. Coach should encourage solution thinking. Do not ask plenty of questions. Ask few relevant, reflective questions. Reinforce the effort, even if the player has not succeeded. And reinforce whatever small adjustment he is able to make as a change in his tactical approach. Long-term benefits, I'm sure you will find very faster tactical adaptation of players. As the player progresses from the under 15, under 17, under 19 to the senior category, you will find that many talented players who were very good at 15 and 17 are not able to match the competitive situations at the senior level, not because of technical skills, not because of fitness, but because they are not tactically, strategically effective. It helps them to reduce their anxiety. Every competition is a pressure situation. You cannot have a competition without pressure. The player has to be taught how to handle it. So they'll be able to better prepare to handle pressure situations, and you will find a smooth transition from the junior to the elite level. Final message: talent can win few rallies. Emotional control can win few matches. Smart thinking can win championships.
Okay. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Anil, for this clear, engaging, and truly enriching presentation. It has been a real privilege to have you with us in this edition of Coach Corner and to learn your extensive experience as a researcher, sports psychologist, and also a coach about how emotional control and decision-making directly influence badminton players' performance. Your analysis of what happens in players' minds during moments of high pressure, especially in close matches, leaves us with very valuable insights for all the coaches working on the development of their athletes. From this, we'll take a very clear message. Beyond technique and physical preparation, the ability to manage emotions, maintain clarity, and make smart decisions on the court often make the difference between winning and losing on a match. On behalf of Badminton Pan Am, we would like to sincerely thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and your commitment to the development of coaches and athletes across our region. Before closing today's webinar, we thank our friends who have sent us their photographs in the coaching family segment. Thanks to following persons: Sebastian from Argentina, Jose from Mexico, Ronaldo from Venezuela, and Isaac from Peru. Also, thank you very much for our audience who joined us today. We have Sebastian from Argentina, Milenka from Bolivia, David from Canada, Mario from Chile, Jose and Blanca from Colombia, Randy from Costa Rica, Andrea from El Salvador, Kelsey and Edward from Domrep, Marshall and Sue from Jamaica, Pierre Roosevelt from Haiti, Jorge and Jose from Mexico, Eden and Dinoso from Nicaragua, Roderick from Panama, Roderick, Griselda and Cesar from Paraguay, Sandra, Isaac and Guillermo from Peru, Yasumir, Yara, Reynaldo, Nelson, Marla, Peria, and Gildas from Benin, Donald from Botswana, Enoyo, Mark, and Teknoko from Cote d'Ivoire, Chukwamenka from Nigeria, Ramsid, Romy, and Isa from United Emirates, Halima from Senegal, Ayushi, Advalt, Hakil, Eden, Davisha, Anthony, Anmol, and Alexia from India. From our other continents around the world. On behalf of Badminton Pan America, we thank you for your participation and hope you enjoyed today's session. We wish you all the best and hope to have you in our next session. Take good care of yourselves.